Welcome along to Silverstone, everybody, for this weekend's racing from the GT Cup Championship. Whilst we're on the Grand Prix circuit here at Silverstone this weekend, last time out it was a one-day format and two pit stop races that took place at Alton Park. In the first race of the weekend, it was Ian Campbell and Ollie Webb that claimed their second overall win of the season. And it was also a second overall win of the season in race number 2 for the Ram Racing pairing in their Mercedes of Callum McLeod and Mike Price. But it's James Wallace and Sam Mayer-Loughnane in their Porsche that continue to lead the overall championship. So before things get underway, let's just remind you of the format we have in a weekend of racing in the GT Cup Championship. So let's have a look at the typical race weekend format. There's a 10-minute warm-up session, and then it's split for this season into two separate 10-minute qualifying sessions. The first 10 minutes is for the cars that run in Group GTO, Group GT3 and Group GTC, and we'll tell you more about those in a moment. Followed by the second 10 minutes, which is for cars in Group GTB, Group GTH and Group GTA. Most race weekends have a 25-minute sprint race and a 50-minute pit stop race on each day, but the one exception is Alton Park, a single-day meeting, therefore we'll have two 40-minute pit stop races. So that's the general format for the race weekend. Now let's have a look at the way the individual groups work. Group GTO is for open specification cars, and therefore that's where we see the cars that are built to either GTE or GT2 specification or some modified challenge cars. Group GT3 is for homologated GT3 cars running to manufacturers' GT specifications. So those will be cars potentially you could see racing in the domestic and European GT championships. Group GTC is for current and later challenge cars, the likes of Lamborghini Super Trofeos and Ferrari Challenge Europe cars, but they have to be more recent cars because if they're slightly older than 5 years, they will sit in Group GTB. Group GTH, the most popular class we have so far this season, is for homologated GT cars that run to GT4 specification. So again, you would see those in other domestic and European GT championships. And the final group is Group GTA. They are for lower specification challenge cars and will make Series GT cars, the likes of cars from the Ginetta Super Cup. Well, this weekend sees us head to the home of the British Grand Prix, Silverstone, on the Northamptonshire and Buckinghamshire border. It's a world-renowned circuit. It is one that the drivers absolutely love to come and race around. And in its current configuration, there are plenty of challenges out there for them as well. First opened in 1948. It was the first of the circuits to host a World Championship Grand Prix. And in its current configuration, it's just over 3.5 miles long, split into 3 sectors. And with all of the work that was done a few years ago, there are now 18 corners on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. We start from the heritage pits here, which means that the first corner is Cox, and from there it brings you up to the end of Sector 1 at the end of the Hangar Straight just before Stowe. From there, Sector 2 brings us up towards Brooklands, and it's a short final sector through Brooklands, through Luffield, and then flat out over the start-finish line through Woodcut Corner. That is a lap of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Well, Ian, you're back with the GT Cup Championship this weekend. We didn't see you at Alton, and what a way to return. Pole position on the very last qualifying lap.
Yeah, I missed out at Alton, didn't make it there, but I was coming here today to try and do what we've just done. It was quite difficult the first couple of laps. I caught some traffic, and I think lap 2, so I lost a lap there, but when they told me I was sitting, I think P3, I'd really pushed it to the limit. So yeah, that lap came together really nicely.
You're a driver that's already raced this car on the Silverstone Grand Prix layout earlier on this season. So is there some carryover of data that allows you to start the weekend on the front foot?
Aye, there is, but and I would always think, come here, I've raced here, I know exactly what I'm going to do, but when I get in the car, I've forgotten everything. So I've got to relearn what I'm doing. Yeah, but the data is very similar. We're both racing on Pirelli tyres, so I managed a better time today than I did in the last round here, so I'm really pleased with that.
Well, well done on pole position, good luck for the race, and well done on the win in the Portimao 24 Hour.
Many thanks.
with James and Sam, the championship leaders, coming into this weekend at Silverstone. Sam, we're halfway through the season. Everything seems to have gone to plan so far.
Yeah, well, the wheels haven't fallen off today, so we're doing quite well. You know, that was a bit of a shock to us, and everyone worked so hard to get it done. So James is playing a blinder as always, and yeah, everything is, you know, where we want it to be. The pace is definitely up today on other cars, so we're going to have our work cut out, I think.
James, you know, we've spoken a few times this season, new to the championship, new to a GT car, new to a car on slicks, and here you are leading the championship.
I know, I'm loving it, especially around the historic track of Silverstone. It's where the Grand Prix was held in, I think, 1950. So, yeah, it's such a historic track, and it'll be special to get a win here, I think, this weekend.
You were saying, you know, you're going to have your work cut out. Sam, Alton Park, you know, it was another group win again, 6 for the season. So you've had the consistency. How are you feeling this weekend? Because I know you've been through the mill a little bit with broken fingers and a broken jaw.
Yeah, I was doing a stunt rehearsal, flipped a car, broke my jaw 4 places and a finger, so I'm a little bit down today, but, you know, James just, you know, he sets me up. My job is done by the time I get in the car. James is normally, you know, driven such a blinder. I just have to maintain pace. So really, James is the one making this happen. I know I have to be consistent in everything, but yeah. As long as James can make up the deficit, we've got, I think, a 30-second pit stop penalty, well, including everything. So we'll just see how it goes. But like I said, if James can get me somewhere in the lead and I can maintain it, we'll be up for a good shot again, I think.
What's the strategy then, James? Just come away from Silverstone, good haul of points again?
Well, hopefully get a big win, big gap to the second place, and make the job easier as I can for Sam, I guess.
Well done on leading the championship, guys, and good luck for the weekend.
Thank you very much.
So there we go, that's a catch-up with the pole sitter Ian Loggy and a quick catch-up with our championship leaders heading here to Silverstone this weekend. Usual format again, this Silverstone race that's coming up will be the 15th of the championship season, so rounds 15, 16, 17 and 18 taking place this weekend on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Before we then head to another Grand Prix circuit next up, it will be the home of the 1993 European Grand Prix that's next up, which is Donington Park, for a further 4 races there. And the final 4 races of the 2022 GT Cup Championship season will take place in Norfolk at Snetterton on the 300 circuit. So there's still plenty of racing to come, not just this weekend, but throughout the remainder of the 2022 season, and lots of championship points up for grabs. The cars have been released from the pit lane area. They were all told in briefing this morning that they needed to make sure they were queued up at the end of pit lane. The pit lane would open and allow them out onto track to head round to head on to the grid, but the pit lane would only be open for 2 minutes, so you need to get your car to the bottom of the pit lane, get out onto this outlap in reality, ready to form up on the grid. And if you're not at the end of pit lane 2 minutes later when the light turns from green to red, you'll be a pit lane starter. So I think all of the teams well aware that they need to get the car out there quickly, get themselves lined up on the grid, and look forward to this first of 2 25-minute sprint races that are coming up over the course of today and tomorrow as well. A few new cars joining the championship this weekend. There's a number 24 car of Andre Borodin, one of the many cars that are being prepared by Greystone GT. Good to see Ed back in the championship, and one of several additional cars that we've got. Usually Silverstone and the Grand Prix circuit brings out extra entries into the GT Cup Championship, and this weekend is no different at all. If you're wondering why they're heading over the start-finish line there, that's because that is the wing, that's the Grand Prix start-finish line. Whilst we are racing on the Grand Prix circuit here at Silverstone, we are using what is called the Heritage Pit, so it's the old start-finish line. So rather than, as we see there, the Grand Prix start and the first corner being Abbey, we have the old start-finish line, and our first corner is the daunting Cops corner here on the format that we are utilising over the course of this weekend. Another new car to the championship just heading through shot as well. That is the 76 McLaren. It is the 76 team. It is the car number 76, which makes it very confusing when you try to identify and establish exactly what it is. And looking forward to seeing how that car gets on over the course of what is going to be a busy weekend of racing here at Silverstone. I'm joined in the commentary box, I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the commentary box by the reigning overall GT Cup champion. Sam Neary is alongside me. Sam, it's good to have you back alongside me.
Yeah, it's lovely to be back. Thank you very much for having me again. I really enjoyed it.
Sorry about that. Sam has got a small problem. I can't quite understand why that wasn't working. We'll try again, Sam, and see whether we get you then. No, I don't think you're there at all. So a small technical issue that we'll need to work on. We'll bring Sam in a few minutes. I'm going to press that button there, Sam, see if that works. No, that's not working either. Okay, so we've got a small technical issue. We'll chat to Sam in a few moments as the cars head out onto the outlap in reality. Then they'll all line up on the grid and then we'll get them away and racing in this first of two sprint races that we've got over the course of what is a very busy weekend of racing. I was talking about the number 76 McLaren, wasn't I? And that is Leo Lucas that shares that car over the course of this weekend with former British GT champion Bradley Ellis. And we have, fingers crossed, got you now, Sam.
Yeah, hopefully.
There we go.
There we go. Noah, thank you very much for having me back on. I really enjoyed my time at Snetterton. Here at Silverstone this weekend, so looking forward to a really good race.
Yeah, shame that you're not in the entry list for this weekend, Sam. I know also, I ought to ask the question, are you fully recovered? Because you were poorly last weekend, British GT at Spa, and you weren't very well, were you?
Yeah, sadly, I came down with something just after quali on Saturday, so it's sort of, we couldn't get a driver in time to get out either, so we had to retire from that weekend and not race, but feeling back up to 100% now, so hopefully it shouldn't affect me.
It was a bug going around the paddock, wasn't it? Because you weren't the only person that was struck down with something very, very similar.
Yeah, so from what I heard, a lot of people were ill on the weekend. Quite a few team members. We had a few team members. And a few of the F3 teams were also ill, so it sounded like a virus is sort of going around the paddock, but hopefully it's all gone now.
Oh, no, so I'll keep your arm's length still, shall I, just in case, just in case. We're talking about new entrants to the championship as well. One of them will start from pole position as well, Hugo Cook, who we've regularly seen racing in TCR Championship, Great Britain, but has also done a chunk of racing in this Mercedes AMG. Good to see him in the championship, isn't it, Sam?
Yeah, obviously Hugo's a young lad as well. I know him quite well. Obviously, this is his second weekend in the Merc, I believe. But the Merc is a very good car, very easy to get to grips with, as it's shown when a lot of people jump in it. So hopefully him and Ian can have a good race together, and he can probably pick up quite a few points off Ian. We know Ian drives this car a lot, and there'll be a few things that he doesn't do that he'll probably pick up on in this race, and tomorrow going into qualifying be even faster. Yeah,
Hugo Cook is the red and black Mercedes to the right of your television screens. Happy 18th birthday for yesterday, Hugo, as well. He turned just 18 years of age yesterday. And one other thing we will mention as well, and we'll mention it at the top of the broadcast as well, is that there's a change of driver lineup in the number 9 Top Cats Racing with Hex.com Lamborghini Super Trofeo for this weekend. That number 9 car is Jensen Lund sharing with Charlotte Birch, and that is because Warren Gilbert has had to withdraw from this race weekend. We do have 2 Lamborghinis in testing yesterday, but Warren was involved in an incident in testing, which means that he is currently feeling rather under the weather. As a result of that, he has withdrawn. His wife Charlotte has withdrawn to be with him whilst he recovers, and therefore we've got Jensen Lund and Charlotte Birch sharing the number 9 car together. So I'm sure you echo my sentiments. Get well, Warren. Fingers crossed we'll see you back racing very soon.
Yeah, exactly. All the best to Warren. Hopefully he can recover quickly, and hopefully try and be out as soon as possible. Yeah. But he just has to focus on his recovery and get well soon, Warren.
There's another car. Nice to see John Saunders back in the championship. I had a quick chat to John yesterday. We've regularly seen him out racing in a Ginetta in the past, but he's got the number 62 Ferrari at his disposal over the course of this weekend. So it's good to see John back in the championship. I think it's best part of 4 or 5 years ago, last time that we saw him in the GT Cup Championship. So it's good to see him back out. 2017, I think, was the last time we saw him. So it's good to see John back out, and fingers crossed we might see a little bit more of him. And from what you've seen so far, testing yesterday, difficult to read into because of the way that the format was, with multiple cars out there testing all at the same time from other championships that are supporting GT Cup this weekend. But from qualifying this morning, it looked as though largely everything went to plan, I would say, again, for everybody. There was no standouts for me with people out of position particularly.
Yeah, it looks like business as usual. The Merc is definitely up there as usual, but the McLarens are also quick. It looks sort of very similar to what we saw in a lot of the rounds, so hopefully the race isn't as straightforward, and we do see a little bit of action here and there, a few position changes. I'm sure the McLarens, as you saw in other championships, they're very quick in a straight line, so hopefully we can see that and see maybe down Hanger Straight they'll try and make a move on these 2 Mercs in the front, and we should have an interesting race.
Silverstone overtaking opportunities. It's a nice wide circuit. You've got a couple of heavy braking areas in the current format. Easy to overtake in a GT3 car that you drive?
It's quite difficult in the GT3 because of this aero wash that it's not really talked about in these GT3 cars, but it is a big thing, especially on the Mercedes. You do struggle to follow cars, but it is a thing, but it is also a very wide track, which is very easy to make a mistake on, the very high-speed corners. And sometimes if the wind direction changes just before you turn in, it can cause a moment in the car. So that can allow the person behind you to then try and overtake.
So where's the best overtaking opportunity? I assume, get a good run out of Chapel down the Hanger Straight and try at Stowe, maybe into the Vale possibly, and then the other one, one would imagine, is sort of as you head round Abbey and Farm to try and nip up the inside at Village or the Loop potentially.
Yeah, there's a lot of places to overtake if you do get the run. I always like Cops Corner, turn 1. It's always really nice if you get a run out of Luffield, because you can get a run when you sort of brake later into Luffield and go deep and try and get a run on the car on the exit. So into turn 1 is always a really good spot to overtake.
So we'll have to wait and see as to what's going to happen. 25-minute sprint race. It carries points for the overall GT Cup Championship, but it also carries points for the Sprint Challenge as well, which heading into this weekend, the Sprint Challenge is being headed by Lucky Kira, car number 247, by 10 points over absentee Morgan Tilbrook. So it gives Lucky Kira the opportunity to further extend his lead in the Sprint Challenge, where you pick up points in just the sprint races over the course of the weekend. And we've also had a change of car for Lucky Kira, whilst we mention that. Regularly see him out at the wheel of his Ferrari. For this weekend, Super Trofeo car, a Lamborghini.
Yeah, from what I've heard, they've had a few brake issues with that Ferrari, so they've jumped to Lamborghini. This is Lucky's first time in the Lamborghini, funny enough, this weekend. So he's having to learn that with David. David said he's doing really well, and he's he's picking up the car very quickly. He qualified P2 in class, so very interesting.
Problems already, I'm afraid, for car number 76. That's Leo Lucas. The McLaren GT3 has been pushed off the grid with some sort of mechanical woe, and straight away it doesn't look good for that car, does it? They've taken off the rear bodywork and are chatting away to driver. No doubt laptop plugged in as well, Sam, I would guess.
Yeah, it doesn't look good at all. Usually when you're looking in the back of that McLaren, that's where the turbos are for the car, which is sort of the weak point on these McLaren GT3s from what I've heard. So hopefully, if you sit, you can cook them quite easily if you just sit with the car running. So hopefully they've not done that, because that can be an expensive bill.
Oh, yeah, let's hope that they can get the car sorted and at least get it back out there to understand what the problem is. If needs be, might not get a result in this one, but try and get the car out there so that then it's going to be fine in advance of the pit stop race later on. So we've also got both of the Paddock Motorsport cars, I gather, the GT4 cars, 25 and 26, starting from the pit lane as well. So off they head on their formation lap, which means we can probably now guide you through the grid and the way that they will line up for this first GT Cup Championship race of the weekend here, which is going to be round 15 of the 2022 Championship season. So as they head off on their formation lap, then we can just wait for the graphic to pop up and confirm the grid. Ian Lockie starts from pole position with Hugo Cook sitting alongside, and it's the Group GTO Radical of Steve Burgess who drives it solo for this weekend alongside Mike Price in his Mercedes that sits there on row number 2. On to row number 3, it's Simon Orange and Ian Campbell in the McLarens, and then it's the gap where Leo Lucas will start, fingers crossed, from the pit lane alongside Steve Rushton on row number 4. Row 5 of the grid, Graham Tilley in the Mercedes has the car of Richard Chamberlain in his Porsche for company, and it's Andre Borodin, and then the first of the Webbs, which is James Webb in this race, that lines up there on row number 6. Lucky Kira and Roy Millington are there on row number 7, with Jensen Lunn and Tom Barrow, the leading car in Group GTB in qualifying, on row number 8. It's Will Dendy and Adrian Watt on row 9, with James Wallace, and then the number 69 car for this race is started by Chris Hart, who sits there on row number 10. Row number 11 is Mark Hopton and John Curry, with then Philip Carter and Kavi Jundu completing row number 12. Row 13 is going to be the number 26 car, which for this race is going to be driven by Shahan, and alongside is John Saunders, I'm led to believe is starting the car number 62. And then onto the 14th row of the grid, that is where we see the next of the cars, which is the number 63 car, which is going to be started by Paul Maxfield, and alongside is going to be the car of Darren Kell. And then as we continue round through the grid, Tim Kresick starts there on row 15 alongside the number 64 car, which for this race should be started by Erica Hoffman. And then the 16th row of the grid is number 51, which is going to be Rhea Lucas, and the number 71 car, which I don't think we ever got a starting driver for, so I'm not entirely sure who's going to be behind the wheel for this particular car. And then the final couple of rows of the grid, number 65 Sarah Miser sits alongside Ron Trenker, who returns to the championship, and David Frankland also returns to the championship at the wheel of the number 91 Audi. And very, very full grid of cars, Sam, and very exciting 25-minute sprint race ahead.
Definitely, it's great to see the grid getting bigger again. All these GT3 cars, all the GTH cars, it's great to see these classes being sort of run really well, and seeing very competitive races, and this will be no different to the races we've seen.
Yeah, so we'll wait and see as to what happens. There is Lucky Kier at the wheel of the number 247 Lamborghini. He made his debut in the British GT Championship, didn't he, last weekend at Spa-Francorchamps?
Yeah, he was in a Porsche, I believe. He did really well as well, and I think he's just trying to get a bit of track experience and a bit of experience in British GT.
Look, he doesn't need track experience. He's out racing every single weekend somewhere. He's a very, very likeable chap, and if ever there was a motorsport enthusiast, Lucky Kira ticks that box, doesn't he, big time?
Precisely, he does love racing, and it's great to see. It's great that he is out every weekend, and if you find your passion, you may as well do it every weekend. Absolutely.
And the man on pole position, that's his passion as well, which is Ian Logie. He's got something like 70 plus races over the course of this season. He still said to me earlier on he's got another 40 races still to go this season. He's a busy guy, and it's showing with the performances that Ian Loggie's putting in this year that he's getting all of that seat time. So it's an all Mercedes front row of the grid. Ian Loggie lines up alongside championship debutee Hugo Cook on the front row of the grid. The two Mercedes, the dark blue and pink one is Ian Loggie, the red and black one is Hugo Cook. There is at the tail end of the field David Franklin at the wheel of the returning Audi to the championship for this weekend. 25 minutes are on the clock. We're about to get round 15 of the 2022 GT Cup Championship underway here at Silverstone. The lights go out and they charge their way up towards Copse Corner for the first time. There's an enormous field of GT cars, and as they head up towards Copse Corner, it's the Group GTO Radical that in a straight line of Steve Burgess driving solo for this weekend sneaks up the inside to take up the early lead of the race. We know, Sam, that Radical is quick in a straight line. I didn't expect Steve Burgess to get on with it straight away. He leads the way.
I didn't expect that door to be open. I think he might have caught Loggie napping, and there's big damage to the Beluga Porsche and unfortunately the brand new Ferrari that's out this weekend.
Yeah, that's John Saunders that's got tangled up with what looked like the number 50 Beluga Racing Porsche, so we'll have to wait and see. That being the case, that's James Wallace, who is the championship leader. It looked as though it was the number 50 car, but it is, by the look of things, Steve Burgess leading the way. Mike Price was having to get defensive to stop the McLaren, the number 23 car of Ian Campbell wiggling his way through, but we've already, I think, got a couple of casualties in the early stages, and that's caused a bit of a split in the pack, hasn't it? We've also got the two cars that started from the pit lane as well, coming down towards the bottom of the hangar straight. No, it's the 51 Beluga car, so thank goodness it's not the championship leader. It's Ria Lucas, I'm afraid, however, that has got tangled up with John Saunders in the Ferrari. Now, they're on the outside of Copse, Sam. Not an ideal place. Hopefully we'll be able to stay with just localised yellows. And Ron Trenker's had a problem as well. That car had an issue yesterday when it was in the hands in testing of John Lancaster, and had a braking issue which caused damage to the car. But that's three that we've lost in the early stages, I'm afraid, Sam.
Yeah, I think we might have actually lost a few more. If you look at the time screen, there's a lot of people who haven't completed Speed Trap 1, and that's a puncher. So that is probably from contact from that first corner incident. But being on the outside of Copse, I think that could be a safety car if the cars don't get moving.
Yeah, it's not in the safest of places, is it? So we'll try and pick up on the group battles that are going on as well. And it does look as though, they're coming up towards Brooklands for the first time. There's yellow flags there, so safety car is coming out. We are going full course caution. So for Steve Burgess, he was trying to make good his escape, but these two cars that have come together on the exit of Copse have brought out the safety car. John Saunders, not a great return to the GT Cup Championship for the number 62 car. Such a shame that his Ferrari didn't get that far. And also Ria Lucas as well at the wheel of number 51 Beluga car. You can see they're very close to the edge of the track, Sam, there, aren't they? So sensible thing as ever by the officials to bring about the safety car and get those stricken cars out of harm's way. And then we can go back racing, and hopefully we'll also see Ron Trenker's car limp back round to the pit lane with his damage and get a new tyre on it, and hopefully he'll be back in the race as well.
Exactly, for Ron this is the perfect thing. He's seen a safety car, he's got a puncher. All he has to do is try and keep on this lead lap, and he should catch back up to the pack if this is a long safety car. But from what I'm seeing, it looks like he can just push those cars behind the safety barrier, and hopefully it's only a one lap safety car and we can still get maybe 20 minutes of racing. So there is the number 17 car. That is the orange raced by JMH car, and that's got a front right puncture as well. So that is Will Dendy, who is limping his way in towards pit lane. Will was hoping for a group win in Group GTH, but not going to be the case, I'm afraid, for him. So the end of the first lap of racing was for under safety car. Number 7 Steve Burgess in the Radical leading the way from the number 16 Group GT3 Mercedes of Ian Loggie. Hugo Cook in the number 66 Mercedes is third. Simon Orange in his McLaren, the number 67 car, the blue car with the orange flashes, is fourth, ahead of Mike Price's green Mercedes that's fifth. Ian Campbell sixth. Steve Ruston doing a good job. He's there in seventh place at the moment. Eighth is going to be the number 13 Lamborghini, which for this race is James Webb, and then Graham Tilley and Andre Borodin wrap up the top 10. But poor old Ron Trenker still trying to limp the number 80 Greystone McLaren back into the pit lane. it is a horrible feeling when you're trying to lift that car back. You can feel it hitting every single part of the car, and you just know it's causing damage. You hear the dollar signs in your head as you're driving around, so you're just hoping to get back as soon as possible. And that's the safety car gets back out on the track, so they fix that. So for them, this safety car is possibly a saving grace, but you know, only 20 minutes left, so they just need to check the car runs right, so for the endurance race they can get out.
Absolutely, yeah. They're off the lead lap already because they rejoined the race, having been pushed off the grid once a lap had already been completed. But as you say, you know, it gives you the opportunity to check that whatever they had done to try and fix the problem has been fixed, and as long as it has, then yeah, you know, you're in a good position heading into the pit stop race later on. And the other good thing, Sam, is as well, of course, the grid for that pit stop race later on is based on the fastest lap times from this race. So at least if they've sorted the problem, they can get out there, put a quick lap time in, and hopefully it won't damage their grid position for later on today.
Exactly. This is the point where, as a team, if I was a team manager, I'd tell them to sort of back off completely.
Back off, find a gap, yeah.
Find 20-second gap and just go for the fastest lap of the race and try and get pole position, because that is their saving grace this weekend, if they can get pole position and then try and win the endurance race. But I have noticed we possibly lost both for the Trade Centre Formula Women cars, which is a massive shame as well. I'm not really sure what happened at that Turn 1 incident, but they are both not on the time screen as well. So it seems like we lost a lot of cars at Turn 1.
Yeah, there's more cars missing than we've got shown there, haven't you, yet? So we'll have to wait and see. I'm not sure about the number 76 car getting pole, and Leo Lucas, you know, got some experience. He's done a bit of racing in the 24-hour series, but not a lot else as well. Ron Trenker has finally made it back to the pit lane. As you say, it is so frustrating. You want to get back to the pits as quickly as you possibly can to minimise the impact of the puncture in the first place, but the quicker you do it, the more it's likely to fully delaminate and come apart and rip the car apart. So it's a very fine balance, isn't it, limping a car back with a puncture?
It is a very, very fine balance. You just have to try and keep that tyre sort of rolling, and as soon as it falls off and delaminates, as you said, you've got no chance. You just get the sidewall, the tyre starts whipping and starts hitting wishbones and dampers, and then at that point, that's when it's game over.
Yeah, game over. So I think now that we've got Porsche and Ferrari in a slightly safer position, now that we've picked up all of the debris, well done to our marshals for heading out there in the gaps in the traffic and sorting it out, we might see the lights extinguished on the safety car, possibly over the course of this lap. Now, that won't happen until they get onto the Wellington Straight, was what the drivers were informed in the driver briefing over the course of this morning. So it's going to be a while yet before we'll see the lights extinguished on it. And then we'll have to wait and see as to whether at the tail end of the field we do see the number 76 McLaren of Leo Lucas do what you suggested, which is drop back, give himself a gap to accelerate into, and then try and aim for a reasonable lap time. The other two cars it helps, number 26 there and number 25, the two Paddock Motorsport cars, because those two cars started from the pit lane. So now, at least because of the safety car, it's allowed them to sort of catch back up with the pack again, hasn't it? So it's minimised some of the impact of the pit lane start.
Precisely. For some people, the safety car is a saving grace. For some people, it's a massive hindrance. I think for Steve Burgess, it was a massive hindrance for me. He got a massive gap after Turn 1, which I think was actually really interesting. I think he just caught Ian napping a little bit on the inside. I don't think Ian expected the Radical to be that quick off the start line. But if you look at the speed trap of Sector 1, from the Radical, it was almost 13 mile an hour faster. So that's where that straight line speed is showing.
It's been the case all year, hasn't it? The Group GTO cars, very, very quick in a straight line. Don't quite have the aero of some of the GT3 cars. It's certainly going to be more than one lap behind the safety car, isn't it? Because only now do we have the breakdown unit heading there. And there's the whereabouts of one of the missing Formula Woman cars. That's the number 65 car. So that's Sarah Miser. And where is that? That is the exit of Cops Corner as well, is it? No, that's Maggots. That's Maggots and Beckett's, yeah.
Yes, that's. It looks like she's got a little bit of left rear damage. I don't know if I'm seeing that properly, but it looks a little bit low.
Yeah,
so
rear left, yeah.
Not a puncture, but maybe suspension of some sort. So that could have been maybe just a car clipping it as it was spinning, or she's possibly hit a curb too hard. But it's definitely an interesting failure. And she obviously is right after the incident, so I'd say that's probably to do with that Turn 1
Yeah,
incident.
that's just coming out of Chapel, isn't it, onto the Hangar Straight, I think, that potentially. So, yeah, that's another car that will need scooping out of harm's way, because that is, well, it's not directly in the firing line, but it's not overly safe to leave it there. Push it out the way a bit more, maybe a bit more onto the Hangar Straight, but difficulty with the marshals is if it's got a flat tyre, it's not easy to push. You'll need potentially another course vehicle to head in that general direction. So, how key is it? You know, we see them all weaving from side to side. It's reasonably warm ambient temperatures. We've spoken about several times about this new tyre that Pirelli have introduced for this year and how you switch it on in a subtly different way. It's a lot stickier, so we're breaking lap records everywhere. But in a safety car period, how much... Oh, and there's the other Formula Woman car. You're right, Sam. Yeah, that's the second one that's off as well. Does it act differently in a safety car period? Do you have to work not as hard or even harder to keep the tyre in that sweet spot in the safety car period, this new Pirelli?
So for the Mercedes, it is key to keep the tyre temperature. The Mercedes is so good on its tyres that it struggles to keep that tyre temp at slow speed. So you're just constantly weaving back and forward, accelerating and braking, and just trying to keep that core temperature in the tyre, which unfortunately does start to make you feel a little bit sick if you carry on for maybe a 10-15 minute safety car. But it is key to just not stop weaving. These rear engine cars, it's all about the rear tyre temp mostly, just trying to keep it in a straight line when you go through corners. It's difficult when you have no rear tyre temp, so that's the bit you're trying to keep.
And how much impact, as we look at Ron Trenker's car that is clearly out of the race and we're still in the process of winching up the other two cars onto the back of the recovery unit, how much truly does weaving the tyre from side to side do compared to the accelerating and braking, which heats up the brake disc, which radiates into the rim and penetrates the temperatures in the tyres?
So they both do different things. So the weaving is trying to get the surface temperature of the tyre up on the sidewall. So you're trying to get the sidewall and the surface tyre temp. That is what you get first. But accelerating and braking gets the core tyre hot. So over that distance, you're going to have more grip if you accelerate and brake only. But if you've got no sidewall temperature, the sidewall starts to fall over.
So as you start to turn in and it loads up on the sidewall, it just washes out.
Exactly. And it can also cause punctures very easily for the sidewall to fold over on itself, get a little slit in it, and that is causing punctures. And that seems to be the issue with this slightly new tyre, is the sidewall starting to cut.
And I guess that is exacerbated if you haven't got the sidewall temperatures up. If you then just tap a curb as well,
Exactly.
not the sausage curb, but any other curb, but certainly a sausage curb. Not only is it loaded up, but you clip it, and all of a sudden, you got a hole in the sidewall.
Exactly. It always shocks you when you walk around these tracks and you see these serrated curves, and you think they are so sharp compared to what it feels like in the car. And when you have a little bit less tyre pressure, 0.4 of a bar it's a couple of mil as well, so the car's lower.
And the only reason you know that they're so serrated, these curbs, Sam, is because you do what most race drivers really ought to do, and many do a track walk. Do a track walk the night before.
I'd say more of a scooter walk. The walking isn't really for me.
You're a young man, Sam. Come on.
The 6 kilometres tracks in Spa, it's a bit too far for me, so I prefer to be on the scooter. But I definitely suggest going around the track before you race it.
Taxi for Neri, yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. You're fighting fit. Should be fighting fit. So it looks as though we're still going to have at least another couple of laps behind the safety car. How frustrating is this? You get to the first corner, you're leading the race, or you've got a good start and you've stayed out of trouble, and then unfortunately for whatever reason behind there's an incident, and then you're sort of bottled up behind the safety car for 10 minutes. Is it frustrating? Is it difficult to try and keep your head in the right place so that as soon as those lights go out, the safety car and you're back racing, bang, you're on it straight away?
It all depends what situation you're in. Sometimes you have an issue with the car and you just want the race to end. But obviously it's only been lap 1, so no one should have that issue. So for them, it's literally the car behind will have such a fire inside of him, and he's just watching the clock tick down, and he knows his time to pounce is getting less and less. So for him, it's very frustrating. For the car in the lead, this is happy. He'll happily end the race in safety car.
Steve Burgess will be quite happy with this one as well. Yeah, he won't be scoring full championship points this weekend because they've only got a couple of entries in Group GTO, so they will be on restricted championship points rather than it being sort of 25 for a win in Group GTO. Because of the fewer cars we've got entered, it would just be 18. Steve's driving solo as well this weekend. Ben Dimmock is here at Silverstone, but has opted not to compete this weekend, and we'll wait and see as to whether he's back for the rest of the season. But yeah, it gives Steve plenty of opportunity to do every single lap in that Radical over the course of this weekend. And it's been a car that's been quick, hasn't it? It's had a couple of retirements over the course of the season, but that Radical has been indecently quick and did actually claim an overall win. Brands Hatch in the sprint race there, it won overall, didn't it, Sam?
Yeah, it did. I remember that Radical last year when I raced it at Silverstone. It is so quick on that back straight. You just can't do anything, just a sitting duck. But no, they're doing really well, that Radical, and they're starting to work out, from what I've heard, they're starting to work out these tyres a lot more. They have 2 different types of tyre. They have a DHE on the front and a DHD2, which is 2 different types of Pirelli. So trying to work out the 2 different rubber compounds
Well, that sounds
on
very
the same car is very technical. So they're sort of starting to work it out, and they're sort of trying to find this time. They're very different ways to run these 2 tyres.
And looking at the forecast for tomorrow, we might need a 3rd compound tomorrow, Sam.
Exactly.
It's due to be wet.
It always adds a bit of into racing, so I love a wet race. I think it adds so much to the cars, and it also makes them all equal. All these cars that have more power, or if you have less power, it all becomes equal in the wet, and it's just who's got the confidence.
No, absolutely, yeah, you've got all of that power, but you just can't utilise it, and that's why on a couple of occasions when we've seen sopping wet races, you've got Group GTH cars running up with the Group GT3s because they just can't use all of the power.
Exactly. The issue in these GT3s is they have such massive tyres and such horsepower. Well, torque is the issue. horsepower is fine, but they've got so much torque that it just spins the rear
Spins them
wheels.
up, yeah.
And when you're usually going through this corner, going through turn 1, you're going 110 usually in the dry. In the wet, it's maybe 70 mile an hour. So your aero is a lot less as well. So you've got less aero. You've got 2 big tyres for the conditions, so you hit standing water easily. And the TC just can't keep up with the torque, so they are a proper handful in the wet. But they're very good fun.
You can tell you're a racing driver because you're saying they're a proper handful in the wet, and you're smiling whilst you're saying it, so you're absolutely relishing it.
Exactly, I'm just dreaming of it right now. Just dreaming of it.
So there we've got the black Lamborghini of Lucky Kira, but behind it is the number 9 car, as we mentioned earlier on, just a single entry for this weekend. Jensen Lund sharing with Charlotte Birch because the other car in the team was involved in an incident yesterday. Warren Gilbert feeling rather worse for wear today, I would imagine, and his wife Charlotte has also withdrawn to just look after him. So again, we will say it again, get well soon, Warren. We hope to see you back up on your feet very soon indeed, and back racing with us in GT Cup. Maybe not until the back end of this season, I suspect probably 2023, but we wish him well.
We both know Warren well. He'll be out as soon as he can. We wish him well, and all the best to him.
So weaving being done, lights are still on the safety car. We've not really had that much racing of this 25 minutes, 10 minutes to go, but I think we're nearly there now, and fingers crossed as the safety car heads down the Wellington Straight. This might be the chance where we see the lights extinguished. They're still on as they head in towards the braking area for the Vale, so we've probably still got another, third or a quarter of a lap before we see the lights extinguished. So just to confirm again, the top 10 as we are at the moment, under safety car, number 7 Steve Burgess in the Radical leads the way, the number 16 Mercedes of Ian Logie is second, ahead of the 66 Mercedes of Hugo Cook, who's third. Fourth is the McLaren of Simon Orange, I should say. Fifth is number 11 Mike Price. Sixth is 23 Ian Campbell. Seventh is 44 Steve Ruston, and then it is the Webb's Lamborghini, the number 13 car, which is in the hands of James Webb, who is there in 8th place. Graham Tilley and his Merc is 9th, and Andre Borodin wraps up the top 10. As for the group leaders, as we can see that rear damage again with the puncture on the Formula Woman car. Group leaders, overall race leader Steve Burgess leads Group GTO. Group GT3 is being led by the car in second place, the black and pink Mercedes. Group GTC is the Webbs at the moment in their light blue Lamborghini Super Trofeo. Group GTB is the number 20 BMW of Tom Barrow in his BMW 1 Series, and Group GTH is being led by the overall championship leader, which is the number 50 Porsche of James Wallace, and those are your group leaders. Oh, and we also ought to mention Group GTA for this weekend, because it's the first weekend we've had an entrant in Group GTA, so it would be wrong of me not to mention our Group GTA entrant, which is Paul Maxfield, the number 63 car, the Ginetta, that leads Group GTA, and as I say, it's the only time this season we've had a car entered in Group GTA. Matthew Maxfield is the real name, but he goes under Paul Maxfield. So lights are off on the safety car. We are finally, with 8 minutes and a bit of change, about to get some racing underway. Now, the good thing for Steve Burgess, he can decide when he wants to go, and he'll go in a straight line, and we know that Radical is quick in a straight line, so I would be very surprised, Sam, if he's not leading still by the time we get towards Copse.
Yeah, definitely. He should definitely be leading. We saw that first sector, he was almost a second faster in qualifying in that first sector, but the middle sector seems to lose it compared to the GT3 Mercedes. So as he will just put the power down now, get a really good exit, and you'll see him pull away at the start finish straight. Yeah,
already you can see he's stretching the legs at the wheel of the Radical and charges his way over the start finish line. Ian Logie, Hugo Cook, then the car of Simon Orange, followed by Mike Price at the wheel of that light green Mercedes. They all shuffle their way up towards Copse Corner for the first time. There's Tom Barrow in the Group GTB leading BMW. There's the leading Group GTH Porsche just heading through shot, and you can see the orange Ginetta in the background as the Group GTA leader. But Steve Burgess already starting to open up the daylight between himself and Ian Logie. Ian Logie, I thought, would be one that would be fighting for the overall championship, but he's missed a couple of rounds, hasn't he, Sam? Including last time out at Alton Park, he was racing a GT4 Mercedes in the Portimao 24-hour, which he won the class, but otherwise he could be a driver that could be right up there in the championship reckoning, as Simon Orange tries to sneak up the inside of Hugo Cook. The McLaren is fully alongside as they get towards Stowe Corner, but Hugo Cook braves it out around the outside at Stowe, which gives him the inside line for Vale. So good squabble between the pair of them. They just gave each other enough room.
Precisely. It looks like Ian is struggling a lot right now. He didn't get, I was talking about those rear tyres, it looks like he's struggling just through that rear tyre grip. It should start to come in now at the end of the lap, and this should allow him to get away from Hugo Cook and hopefully get to Steve Burgess. But that Radical just looks like it switched on his tyres a little bit better, and he's pulled away maybe a 2-second gap. So I think your money should be on Steve Burgess right now.
Well, at the moment, yeah, absolutely. You'd be a fool to bet any other way other than Steve Burgess. The fight's still continuing down through the order. It looked like a great little squabble that's going on for the lead of Group GTH as well. We just saw in the background there, James Wallace was having to weave around to try and keep Chris Hart's aspirations at bay at the wheel of the number 69 Mercedes. But out of the loop and Aintree on towards the Wellington Straight, you can see Steve Burgess in the all-white Radical, the man from Nottingham, disappearing up the road, the multiple Radical champion Steve Burgess. Then the 3 or 4 GT3 cars, Ian Loggy, followed by Hugo Cook. Then the car of Simon Orange, who's still being shadowed by Mike Price. So Mercedes, McLaren, Mercedes, and just a little bit off that is another 2 cars busy squabbling away, which is Ian Campbell and the number 44 McLaren, the Paddock Motorsport car of Steve Ruston, who's having a really good run, I've got to say. You know, Steve new to this GT3 car last year, former champion in the GT Cup, but the number 44 McLaren really is going well in this race.
At Alton Park as well, he showed how quick he was with P3 in qualifying. So, you know, Steve's family sort of getting used to this car, which is really nice to see. So hopefully, you know, and soon, as we see, is that Jensen
Lund, yeah. Running a little bit wide there out of Copse.
Yeah, this power of the Supertrofeo just gone past that McLaren, and that's key. The McLaren just looks like he's struggling in the high-speed corners just to keep that pace, and in a Supertrofeo car, it's really annoying when someone slows you down, then you have to get going again. And he's right on the back of Lucky Kira, so this is going to be a really interesting
This will be for second and third in Group GTC at the moment, because the light blue Lamborghini Super Trofeo just up the road in the hands of Tom Webb, or James Webb rather, for this race, is leading the way at this stage. So that was a vital overtake, wasn't it, for Jensen Lund? He's got the GT3 car out of his way now. He can focus his efforts on the GTC black Lamborghini of Lucky Kira that lies ahead and see whether he might be able to sneak his way through. And a good result for that Top Cats Racing with Hex.com Lamborghini would be the exact medicine that Warren Gilbert needs at the moment, and he's trying hard here, isn't he? So the 2 Super Trofeo spec cars, I mean, you look at the Super Trofeo spec car, it does look a little bit different to the GT3. It's got more power, it hasn't got the aero, has it, however, the Super Trofeo spec Lambo?
No, the Super Trofeo definitely, I think it's about 50 more horsepower than the GT3, but also that less aero gives it more straight line speed. So in the GT3, it's a really annoying car. So I think a great battle between Hugo Cook and Simon Orange. Ian just really seems to be struggling right now to switch the tyres on, which is it's interesting for me. Usually he can get the tyres going and sort of build a gap, but this is it's causing a great battle as Ian goes to defend into Brooklands, but he needs to move back over so Hugo can't get the run through Luffield, which I'm sure he will try and do.
He's certainly the slower car at the moment. He's the cork in the bottle, and I think once he gets unpicked, or if he gets unpicked, then it might be 1, 2, maybe even possibly 3 places that he loses. Now, Hugo Cook trying around the outside at Luffield is a bit brave, because he could have been forced wide there on the exit, but fair play to Ian Loggy. He didn't push him too wide, and now Hugo Cook is looking to try and draw himself fully alongside. Is he going to be ahead by the time they get to Copse? He's not. Andre Borodin has a spin, but he does sweep all the way around the outside at Copse Corner, keeps it within the confines of the circuit, and that was a stunning overtake from Hugo Cook. Brave to go around the outside at Luffield. Fair play to Ian Loggy for not pushing him wide. Stuck with the task in hand, but then makes a mistake and clobbers the curb as they head in towards Beckett's and almost unsettled the Mercedes there.
That was a big moment. That is from hitting the curb when the car's too low. It just completely stalls the air and had a big moment. So this is Ian's chance to try and crawl back, but it just looks like he's struggling too much with the tyres. I don't know why he can't switch them on. He could not be on new tyres right now. He could have been on used tyres from the test day, which could be the issue, but he's now under attack from Simon Orange. So Ian just seems to be dropping back, and you know, he might have lost his head a little bit under the safety car, so hopefully he can get it back and try and challenge Hugo Cook again. But he's pulled the gap, and maybe Hugo could even challenge for the lead here, but that was a very nice move out of Luffield.
Very, very nice move, very brave move as well, around the outside at Luffield, around the outside at Copse. Andre Borodin limping his way back into the pit lane, I'm afraid, at the wheel of the Greystone GT McLaren GT3. Now, Ian Loggy here has already not only had Hugo Cook take the place away and pull away from him, he is falling ever more into the clutches of the number 76 McLaren of Simon Orange, who is looking to see whether he might be able to unlock the door and squeeze his way through. Sneaks his way up the inside as they head up towards the heavy braking area for Village Corner. And there wasn't a great deal that Ian Loggy could do about that. As you say, he just doesn't seem to have the car that he had in qualifying at the moment.
Not at all, and this is really interesting because this is Mike Price now jumping onto Ian Loggy in the same car by the same team, so I'm sure they're running the same setup. So this is really interesting to see Ian struggling this much. He could have damage, he could have picked up something, he could have hit a curve too hard and have a slow puncher, so it's not like Ian to be dropping back like this.
Or as you say, maybe he's opted to start this race on used tyres and others are on brand new tyres. You are limited to the amount of tyres you can run in any one day. Was it 3 sets over the course of each individual day? Not many take their full allocation. This is for the lead of Group GT8, so this is James Wallace. I said a while ago his hands were rather full because he'd got the number 69 Mercedes right behind behind him. Well, absolutely, Chris Hart is not giving up his aspirations to try and haul that Mercedes through and ahead of James Wallace. Now, Chris Hart has had wins in the group so far this season, but he's only had 3, such has been the dominance of the Porsche. And those two are busy battling away at the moment. And was there a mistake there? I think there was, wasn't there? Yeah, James runs wide. Chris Hart draws himself alongside, and there's a bash between the pair of them.
That's not racing in my eyes. That's just crash bang and wallop. So that will really annoy Chris. I was speaking to him before this race. He said he's all out. He's got nothing to lose. So I'm sure Chris will give it back somewhere, and we'll see the outcome.
Yeah, James's mistake. He ran wide, and then he didn't really need to try and close the door to that degree on the Mercedes. So. Fingers crossed it hasn't caused damage to either of those cars, because whilst it was sort of wheel-to-wheel damage, you can still rip a tyre valve off as a bare minimum, can't you?
Precisely. We know these German cars are strong, though, both of them German, Porsche, Mercedes, so hopefully a bit of rubbing, but that was a bit more than rubbing, so hopefully no damage on either car.
And here's Ian Loggy still under this pressure as well for 4th place. He's dropped off the podium as a result of Simon Orange going through. He's still on the group podium because he's 4th in the race and 3rd of the Group GT3 cars that we have in the field, but he's got his Ram Racing teammate and former Porsche racer Mike Price right with him. Mike takes a nice wide sweep in towards the braking area for Village, up towards the loop. They'll thread their way. Key corner this, isn't it? Get on the power as soon as you can. Try not to spin the wheels up. Get a good run through Aintree and see what you can do on the way in towards Brooklands.
Mike did it really nice there. He went really wide through the loop, which just gives you a run all the way down here. So that's really interesting as the clock goes down to 0. So this should be Steve Burgess's win.
It certainly looks as though that is going to be the case for Steve Burgess. He's about to come through and claim what for him would be only his 2nd win of the 2022 championship season. But can Mike Price do anything in the closing stages of this race? And are we also going to see a further shuffle in Group GTH? Steve Burgess claims the win, his 2nd of the season. It is going to be Hugo Cook makes his debut in the championship that finishes in 2nd place. Simon Orange comes through in 3rd. Ian Loggy does hold off Mike Price to finish in 4th. And for the lead of Group GTC, it's all changed. Jensen Lunn has gone through and ahead of James Webb, and Lucky Kier has followed him through. The light blue Lamborghini was leading the group, and somehow, and this will go down fantastically well with the team after the troubles of yesterday, Jensen Lunn in the sole Top Cats Racing with Hex.com Lamborghini claims the win in Group GTC and finishes in what was 9th position overall. We've also got still the lead battle for Group GTH, I think, to come over the start-finish line, and here they come now. They might have had a wheel-to-wheel contact at this part of the circuit on the previous lap, but it does look as though we are just about going to see a win in Group GTH for James Wallace, who manages to hold off Chris Hart towards the end. But the story for me there, Jensen Lund picking up the lead in Group GTC in the closing stages of the race. What a win for the team. That will go down well.
That was absolutely brilliant. It just came out of nowhere. We saw him in the lead, so I'm really happy for them. You know, they were a little bit down after the Warren incident, so no, that's just the icing on top of the cake for them.
And that's the start of the weekend,
exactly,
isn't it, as well?
It's the first race, so I'm really happy for them. So hopefully that's an image of what's to come. So now really happy for them.
Yeah, chuffed to bits for them. So last couple of cars just threading their way over the start-finish line, including the car that is the winner of Group GTA will come through shortly, which is going to be Paul Maxfield. And then once we've got Paul Maxfield through, I think there's only another couple of cars to take the checkered flag then. But for Steve Burgess, driving solo this weekend, he's been partnered up with Ben Dimmock for the vast majority of the last couple of seasons that they've been racing in the GT Cup Championship. Clearly this car suits this circuit, and looking at the pace that it had relative to the GT3 cars, he could be a tough man to beat in all of the races over the course of this weekend. But of course we do need to take into account for later on today the pit stop penalties in the pit stop race.
Precisely. When the pros get in these GT3 cars, they just go on rails. They go even faster. So if you look at the fastest lap times, Burgess was a second slower than Hugo Cook in the end, but that could be Steve just trying to keep it calm.
So let's just confirm the results then. It's a win for Steve Burgess by 2.1 seconds from Hugo Cook, with Simon Orange in 3rd, Ian Loggy, Mike Price and Ian Campbell wrap up the top 6. Steve Ruston was 7th, had a Graham Tilley in 8th place, and Jensen Lunn in 9th picked up the win in Group GTC from Lucky Kira, who completed the top 10. It was James Webb in 11th, head of Roy Millington. Tom Barrow was the winner of Group GTB as he finished in 13th place. It was Adrian Watt in 14th. And 15th saw the win in Group GTH go the way of James Wallace. Only just though from Chris Hart, Mark Hopton, and then the number 17 car of Will Dendy, who finished in 18th place, head of John Curry, and Philip Carter wrapped up the top 20. Just outside of the top 20 to pick up the win in Group GTA went the way of Janetta G55 of Paul Maxfield. But of course there were problems for Andre Borodin, for Ron Trenker, and others that all fell by the wayside in the early stages of the race with that safety car. So that wraps up The sprint race, the first of our races. Sam, we've got it all to do again later on today, and I'm very thankful for you. You're going to join me in the commentary box again later on today.
Yeah.
And you're back for the pit stop race tomorrow as well, aren't you?
Exactly. 3 times you got me this weekend. So
sorry about that.
It's a pleasure, mate. It's a pleasure. If that race was anything to go by, we had 10 minutes of racing, and it was a brilliant 10 minutes of racing. So hopefully, if we can times that by 5 and have a 50-minute race in those safety cars, that would be brilliant. I think we can have a really good race in our hands later on in the day.
Are you likely to be back out in GT Cup this season? You don't have to say so if you don't want to. I know you've got the GT3 car. You also had a GT4 you were hoping to get out as well. What are the general plans?
I believe we're going to be doing Donington in the GT4 car. Myself and an AM driver. Nothing really fully confirmed yet, but it looks like it's going to be. So hopefully I'll be battling for that lead in GTH. Which will be really interesting. So that's my plans for GT Cup for the rest of the year, I think.
Plans in place. So thanks to Sam Neary for joining me for this first GT Cup Championship race here at Silverstone. We will be back later on, though, today with our pit stop race, round 16 of the Championship, coming up later on today. Until then, it's goodbye.